It's back to school season, and what better way to be studious than by starting your own website? GoDaddy.com has hosting plans starting at just $3.95 a month, and no matter what plan you choose, your site receives 24/7 maintenance and protection in the GoDaddy.com world-class data center. Plus, as a MuggleCast listener, enter code MUGGLE, that's MUGGLE, when you check out, and save an additional 10% on any order. Get your piece of the internet at GoDaddy.com.
This is Professor McGonagall welcoming you all to MuggleCast, hoping you enjoyed. Dobby, come here. Here, Dobby.
Yes, well, I'd just like to say how very pleased I am to introduce MuggleCast to all of you. Thank you.
Because there's a small chance we may get fired this episode, this is MuggleCast episode 183 for October 26th, 2009. All right, welcome to MuggleCast episode 183. This is a special episode for two reasons.
Special.
One, the surprise was ruined.
Damn.
Ben Shane is with me in the MuggleCast studio this week.
Feels great to be live, Andrew. I feel like my voice is clear.
It sounds good.
I feel like I'm me again.
Yes, you are you again. And also, for the first time in MuggleCast history, the Emerson Sparks is making his pre-recorded MuggleCast debut. Welcome, Emerson.
Happy to be here, Andrew.
How does it feel?
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Well, yeah, as everyone knows, you've always done the live episodes with us, but never a pre-recorded one, like this one, for example, so...
That's my style.
Yeah, and of course you're also on because we're celebrating 10 years of MuggleNet, and we'll talk to you later on in the show about how you got started with the site. I have some questions that personally I'm very curious about, so I'm excited to hear your answers.
Andrew, always the curious one.
All right, so we have a very, very, very busy show today. I'm Andrew Sims.
I'm Ben Shane.
I'm Eric Skull.
I'm Mike Tannenbaum.
I'm Emerson Sparks.
All right, Micah, there's been a lot in the news. What's going on?
Well, not too much. I'm actually going to take this week off.
Come on, Micah.
Step up, Micah.
No,
It's 10th anniversary.
The webmaster of MuggleNet's here. Aren't you trying to impress? Come on.
No. I don't. All right.
You're fired.
All right. See you guys.
I wonder if we can all make it through the show without being fired.
All right.
I should have been fired a long time ago.
What's that?
Sorry, go ahead, Micah, with the news.
All right. Well, let's start with Deathly Hallows, some filming updates. Tom Felton updated his Twitter not too long ago at the beginning of the month, saying that he was filming with Ralph Fiennes and that he's thoroughly enjoying working with him. So some information there about what's going on. Any idea what scenes they could be?
Malfoy Manor. Because Helen McCrory is also filming as well.
Yes, she is.
She?
Yeah, she said on October the 5th that a table read for Part 2 of Deathly Hallows was taking place that day. So, yeah, you're probably right, Malfoy Manor. Mm-hmm. Nothing later on in the series has been shot just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And she also noted that many around the set have grown up with the franchise and are sad to see it go.
Well, yeah, there was an interview with Robbie Coltrane too about that. It must be pretty sad.
Well, that's just like us,
Yeah, we're never ending though.
MuggleNet 10 years old. We're getting up there.
But they're ending.
Times are changing.
They're ending. You know, it must be sad.
Yeah, a little bit, probably.
Well, if they're looking for work, they can.
They can join MuggleNet.
No, there's these Twilight films coming out.
All right, Micah, what else?
Well, speaking of Deathly Hallows, Matt Lewis, who plays Neville Longbottom, was at the opening of the Boston Harry Potter exhibition, and he talked a little bit about the 7th film. He said that he has a script for Part 2 and will begin shooting next week, and that the scale of it is enormous. Neville is, quote, a bloody and battered resistant leader, a battle-hardened veteran. And actually one of our staff members was at that event in Boston, and it opens this Sunday, October the 25th.
Right. Matt Lewis and Ivana, and I'm sure many other actors, they've been hyping up this Part 2 like crazy just because of how the Part 2 is going to be basically mostly the Battle of Hogwarts. And, I mean, they are really hyping this up, so hopefully it is not a letdown.
Sweetie, does everybody still think it's a good move, splitting it into 2?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean, financially alone, they're doubling their money just from one book. I mean, imagine if they did that for all the books, which they could have
14 movies. That would be a bit intense.
Yeah.
It would be. You're right.
But at the same time, it would prolong the party.
Can you imagine what? Jesus, it'd be going to like what 2020 or something? Something insane.
That would be insane.
They start making comparisons to the Saw movies.
Yeah,
Saw 6 came out last week.
Don't want.
I was like, I saw Saw 1 and 2. I don't remember 3 through 5.
Yeah.
3 was good. 2, I hate 2. 3 was good. 4 and 5 did not need to exist.
But I mean, you know, I'm sure they're also feeling motivated to really make sure that this final film is perfect because it's the last chance they have to really, you know, turn the books into the film. So, you know, and they want to do something that they can really treasure forever. So,
yeah,
Matt
I think
Lewis
it'll be
saying-
interesting.
Sorry.
I would say I think it'd be interesting, you know, when this is all said and done, to look at the first film and compare it to the last film, and you know, see like truly how far the special effects team has gone, how far the overall production quality has gone, you know, how far the Dan, Rupert, and Emma, how much better they've gotten, and how just in the chemistry of the cast and everything, how that's developed over time, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it's shaped up.
Yeah. Maybe mostly in Part 1, it'll be interesting to see Dobby again, you know, for the first time since Part 2, you know, and to see how that CGI works. I mean, I know we had Creature in the past one, but just, you know, watching the same, you know, to see Dobby again.
right. Well, I'll give you an example, like Sirius in the fireplace in what was the first one? Goblet of Fire.
Largely regarded as a bad.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
CGI.
And then Order of the Phoenix, it looked much better. So
Yeah.
it was
Like
very
Quidditch.
right. And
Quidditch is almost too easy to pick on.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I think I've told this story on MuggleCast before. After I saw Half-Blood Prince, I saw Sorcerer's Stone right away, and the Quidditch in Sorcerer's Stone, like, you know, the Quidditch pitch, it's very bright and colorful, and it's not nearly as detailed as what you see in Half-Blood Prince. It's really
What are movies going to look like 30 years from now? You know, can you imagine?
yeah. You won't be able to tell what's CGI. Just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be completely immersed into the movie. It'll be just like you're an actor on the set.
Right.
Yeah. Which would be cool, because they could go and remake older movies like Die Hard with you in them.
Right. All right, Michael, what else?
All right, over to Half-Blood Prince. This movie never seems to go away. The DVD Times released a new article detailing what we can expect from the close-up with the cast of Harry Potter portion of the Half-Blood Prince DVD. Many cast members are contributing with fun segments, which totals close to 30 minutes. And there's also going to be a Deathly Hallows sneak peek on the DVD as well.
Yeah, that's big news, because they did that with, on the Order of the Phoenix DVD, they had the Half-Blood Prince sneak peek. So
Right.
hopefully it'll be good. I wasn't blown away by that Half-Blood Prince sneak peek they had on the Order of the Phoenix DVD.
I don't recall it, to be perfectly honest.
It's on YouTube if
Oh, I'm sure it was there. But I mean, nothing special,
right?
You know, I mean, but it's nice. I mean, especially with Deathly Hallows. I mean, quite a chunk of it is filmed, and so they should have some good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also, David Yates and Dan Radcliffe are going to participate in a community screening of Half-Blood Prince on December the 12th at 3 o'clock. Fans who have a copy of the film on Blu-ray and are registered in the BD Live community will be invited to participate. Andrew, you got to be excited about this. Are you going to participate?
Where's it at?
That's right, Micah. No, it's a digital gathering. Everyone who has Half-Blood Prince on Blu-ray, they all get together. It sounds nerdy.
A digital gathering.
Yeah, that's what it's called, the BD Live community. So, and the PS3s can hook up to the internet. So you're going to be able to hear David Yates and Dan Radcliffe commentate the movie live while everyone watches.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So
that's sweet.
Ben, you can come over. We'll
have a party.
Yeah. But yeah, it should be cool. And I got to imagine, this is the first time Dan Radcliffe's going to be doing commentary for any film. So I think it should be interesting. Very interesting.
That's something they should do for the Ultimate Editions. Give more commentary tracks.
Yeah, at least the trio. Just get them in there. They can do it.
I would love to see Dan do Sorcerer's Stone, because I'm sure he would just be ripping himself the entire time.
I definitely would.
I think he has said in past interviews that he can't bear to watch that first movie because of his acting and
Neither
his voice.
can most people.
I can bear it. But Micah, if it makes you feel any better, I know you said earlier that this movie just won't go away. Once the DVD's out, I think we'll be pretty much done with it. So.
Well, we had that extra time built in since they postponed it, so it's been around a little bit longer than it should have been.
Right.
But, all right, moving on. J.K. Rowling announced while she was at the Stella McCartney
She did not announce this. This was overheard.
Oh. It was secretly overheard while at the Stella McCartney show.
Well, like Obama calling Kanye a jackass. It was overheard.
Well, no, he actually said that.
Right. Yeah, that's on tape. So go on.
That she is indeed putting, quote, pen to paper, and it says, I'm working on something, but it's not Harry Potter, she said. I need a Harry break. And I guess it's kind of interesting after she created the Twitter account a couple weeks ago and said that she was busy working on something. The question is what?
Right. I don't believe this. I think the story's bogus.
What, you think that she's working?
I think she's working on something. I think it's Encyclopedia she's working on, yeah. I don't know. It just seems
really?
like why? Because why would you? Potter. We have 2 movies coming up. Why would you move on right now?
Because you spent the last 16 years, slaving away over this stuff.
At the bank account.
She has said she's done with books 1 or Harry's story. Yeah, we get that. But I really. It seems to make sense that she'd be working on the Encyclopedia right now.
But I think it makes equal sense that she'd be working on something else because she's probably a little bit burnt out on Harry Potter.
No, you're probably right.
Let's look at the facts, though. It's been 2 years since Deathly Hallows came out. Actually, almost 2.5 years, really.
Yeah.
Since Deathly Hallows came out, and about a year since Beetle the Bard.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last thing she's written widely.
Right.
So, just fact-wise, it's been 2 years since she's written Harry specifically, and
what does that mean?
Yeah, what are you saying?
Oh, it just means for being tired of Harry. She's already been. I mean, it shocks me that it's already been 2 years since book 7, but it has been.
Right.
Well, next week when she's on the show, we'll ask her.
Way to upstage Emerson.
Well, no, we've joked about that for 5 years?
Right. And it hasn't been
Joe,
funny.
I know you're out there.
I know you're out there. Well, I think, maybe during the next live show we can stage a massive Twitter attack on Joe's account and everyone can just @reply her and be like, get on MuggleCast.
If she doesn't log in, she can't see that, can she?
Right.
Well, she's like me. She could be on Twitter for a year and a half and not know what @replies were.
Yeah.
And not know how to check them.
Yeah, Emerson, a little background. Emerson was all bashing on Twitter. I don't really see the point of this thing for a long time.
But see, that's how everyone is until you join it. You said that too, Ben.
No, but I knew what the @replies were.
Oh.
So if you send me an @reply at any point in the past year,
prior to July.
Maybe 2 months ago, up to July, and I didn't reply. It's not because I'm a bad person or I hate you. Or
He's just a dumbass.
I'd love to. J.K. Rowling, she has so much potential with that Twitter account, though. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying?
She probably has even more potential with her bank account.
Right.
Think about the reason why Miley Cyrus deleted her Twitter, because anytime she'd write anything, the media would pick up on it and start conjecturing based on 120 character tweet. Imagine what the media will do anytime J.K. Rowling would tweet about anything.
They just don't care, though. They seem to respect Joe's wishes far more than they do anyone else's. I wonder if that's because they're scared of her.
No, I don't.
Because she has the magic.
Well, I just meant like the potential for Joe's Twitter. Like she could put some really funny updates out there.
Yeah.
Like chilling with Ben Shane.
Yeah.
She's
I
a
want
funny
a date
gal.
with Neil. Be back later. Ha ha ha. Sipping tea with Fitty.
And Mario.
Getting pumped for MuggleCast.
Well,
Yeah.
what gift? Oh, Emerson gave J.K. Rowling the key to Laporte, so she could be like, "Oh, I'm just admiring the key Emerson gave me."
Well, Laporte is the community Emerson's from.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah.
So how'd that-
not everybody listening.
Oh,
will
sorry.
know that.
Okay, sorry.
I think probably the most exciting thing you could do with the key to Laporte is go to the courthouse and not have to go through the metal detector. That's about it.
That's the advantage.
But it's Laporte. It's the port key.
Oh, I see.
See? So it fit in more ways than Emerson even knew.
What else in J.K. Rowling's world?
She's going to be the recipient of the first ever Hans Christian Andersen Award next year in Denmark. She's going to travel there to accept the award in person on October the 19th, 2010. Now, I don't know why they felt the need to make a notice about this a year in advance.
But what is the award given for, Micah?
It's
It's the first ever.
Right,
award.
right, but like the
I just think it's
you
just
know
in
like
memory
who wins the Heisman Trophy, like the best player in college football? Who wins the
Right.
Hans Christian Andersen Award?
I think it's just in memory of the author, because he
died?
obviously wrote a lot of young children's books. So
Oh, okay, yeah, it makes
Yeah, it says in this article, the literature prize is to be awarded to someone who can directly or indirectly be compared with Hans Christian Andersen.
What books?
That's the vaguest description I've ever
what
heard
did-
for an award.
What
so
did,
it's like 6 degrees of
Yeah.
Oh, look.
If you have anything in common with the man whatsoever, you
Still,
qualify.
J.K. Rowling deserves every literary award that has anything to do with respectability.
This person has done many fairy tales, it looks like. Quite
Right.
a few. I
I'm
don't
sure
know.
you've read one of them.
What is it?
I'm sure you've read some of them at some point.
Oh,
in
The
your life.
Ugly Duckling. That's a big one. We all know The Ugly Duckling.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
oh, that's
The
huge.
Snow Queen. I guess that probably doesn't relate to Snow White. Thumbelina. That's a big one. All right. So, yes, this is a very established author.
Author. Yeah.
So she absolutely deserves that award. Oh, going to receive my H.C. Andersen Award with
On
Neil.
Twitter.
Yeah. Okay. Go on, Micah.
Final bit of news this week. Dan Radcliffe may be set to star in another, well, the first one wasn't a musical, but he's set to return to Broadway. And I figured I'd ask Eric about this because, Eric, you actually were in this play in high school, weren't you?
Yeah, the musical's called How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And it's a satire of 1960s big business or 50s big business concept. It's really a great, funny show.
And it's a musical.
Yeah, it's a musical.
So would Dan have the same part as you? What did
Yeah.
you play?
Dan would have the lead role, which is J. Pierpont Finch is the character. He's like a window washer, and just basically this low class worker guy who finds this book titled "How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying," and it was a real book actually, like way back when, and they made the musical after it. But it basically, chronicles how to rise in the corporation from the mailroom to, pretty much being president of the company without, basically through brown nosing or through just doing various, humorous things.
So your role had to sing. You had to sing some tunes, right?
Yes, but
could you give us a sample of one of them?
Sure. Hang on a sec. Now there you are. Yes, there's that face. That face somehow I trust. It may embarrass you to hear me say it, but say it I must. Say it I must. You have the cool, clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. This is a song that he sings to himself in the mirror.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Eric Skull, ladies and gentlemen.
Trying to pump himself up for a big business conference. Anyway, it's great. It's actually a hilarious musical.
All right, Micah, what else?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you, Micah.
You're welcome, Ben. Anything for you.
We're going to move on now to some feedback from last week's Chapter by Chapter segment where we looked at chapters 1 through 3 of Chamber of Secrets. Ben, would you like to read the first one?
I would. This comes from Will19 from, I don't know where he's from. Message. First off, gotta say I love your podcast. I love how you guys brought back the discussion of the chapters again since I got to relive the feelings I had when I first read it without actually reading it. I'm too caught up in college right now and miss those easy days when I could read Harry Potter. I think the whole point of Dobby dropping the cake was to stop Harry from going to Hogwarts. In his little house elf mind, he thought getting Harry in trouble would mean the Dursleys would lock him up or punish him so he wouldn't go to Hogwarts. Just like when Dobby doesn't do what he is supposed to do, he gets punished or can't get what he wants. Dobby knew Harry would be punished, but he'd rather Harry punished or even injured than to be killed. After all Dobby risked during this year and what he was willing to do in later years, I can't see Dobby as a character who would do actions out of spite. He always put the other characters, especially Harry, before himself, which could be to his own struggles and self-hate, but he was completely selfless every minute, even up to his death.
There you go. So there's a little feedback for you there.
Ode to Dobby.
Yes. Yeah. Eric, can you take the next one, please?
Sure. This one is from Abby Yu, age 15, from Tennessee. She says, "Hey, MuggleCasters. I think your podcast is great, all caps, and it has saved me from boredom at the many grown-up parties my parents dragged me to. I wanted to say that your chapter-by-chapter segment was great. The abuse that the Dursleys had caused Harry is horrible. I thought about it, and the way they are so nice to Dudley, it's almost out of character the way they act to Harry. I also want to talk about the question someone had asked about, quote, how would Harry feel about the Burrow if his parents were still alive? End quote. I think that growing up with two loving parents and a lot of money might have gone to his head. One count on which Harry and Ron related to each other was because they both had suffered in different ways. Ron's reluctance in the Sorcerer's Stone to tell Harry about his situation, or his poorness, was counterbalanced by Harry telling him about how his aunt and uncle abused him and how he never got birthday presents. If Harry was just a kid used to all the luxuries, they may never have bonded. On the other hand, being a Ron Weasley fan, I'd like to think they would become best friends anyway because of fate. Okay, well, that's about it. Thanks for reading, Abby."
I think Harry would have been a snob had he had both parents.
Yeah, I mean, he was the way he was raised was really just unique, and I mean, his parents were obviously loaded.
Yeah, but look at Lily. I mean, she really tried to stomp out that arrogant side of James. Like, something must have happened where, I mean, if you look at Snape's worst memory from book 5, you know, Lily detests James being this pompous ass, as it were. So, you know, even though he has lots of money and stuff, or they have lots of money later, don't you think that Lily being a mother, if Harry had his mother, that Lily would kind of, foster him away from that kind of attitude?
She would probably try to, but I mean, I don't know. I guess there are plenty of kids. I mean, it's unfair to say just because if he had love from both parents that he would turn out to be kind of snobby and not become friends with somebody like Ron.
The way he was raised, though, definitely put him in a unique situation.
Yeah. And he wouldn't actually be Harry frickin' Potter, if his parents were still alive.
Yeah.
They'd still be famous though, for being R's or, in the Order and standing up to Voldemort. But
all right, next email's from Aparna19 from India. She writes about two things. In Chapter 2 of Chamber of Secrets, when Dobby says, not he who must not be named, and winds his eyes as if trying to give Harry a clue, it is not because he is hinting at his master. He reveals later in the last chapter, after being freed by Harry, that he was trying to give him a clue, saying the Dark Lord, before he changed his name, could be freely named, you see. Do you guys get that?
Yeah, do you?
I understand what she's saying, but it's kind of I never liked that part about the book where it's like, he who must not be named, no, but it was him when he was young, and I wonder how Dobby even knows that. If Lucius, there was another email we got that I read from the inbox in response to that chapter that we read that said, how did Dobby know that it was actually Voldemort as a kid who was the Horcrux if Lucius Malfoy didn't really know that the diary was a Horcrux or what exactly the diary did. So it was a question of what Dobby knew, because he was able to give Harry this hint, but obviously Lucius was, kept out of the blue on a large, bit about what the diary was.
But he also, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that he also mentioned, we talked about it last show with, he knows that it's something that Dumbledore might not even be aware of. So it's possible that he knew about something like Horcruxes even. I don't know how he can know, but it seems like he does.
Well, through house elf magic is, it's implied, but how did he know that it was Tom Riddle, Voldemort as a kid specifically? That just seems a step further, into the mystery about, how Dobby was able to know. Because that was a very specific hint. Because Harry flat out asked if it was Voldemort, and Dobby had to give him a no answer, even though it was like, yes, it was. So
it's almost like a technicality.
It is a technicality.
So specific.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, no, not really. It's not Voldemort. It's Tom Riddle. And
like, for all intents and purposes, given the diary is a Horcrux, a fragment of the actual Voldemort soul from when he was Voldemort, I would say it was Voldemort, that was causing these issues. Like it's almost a non-issue that it's not Voldemort.
All right, and then the second point of her email. Somehow, I always assume that the reason why Dobby drops the pudding might be not just to get Harry into trouble with Vernon, but perhaps also because he thinks Harry might get expelled or suspended or something like that. I think that's a good point. I didn't realize that at the time when we recorded last episode.
Yeah, good point.
That's what I feel really strange right now, because that's what I thought it was all along.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you should have just been on the last episode.
What did you think it was for?
Well, we were speculating why. Was it just to get Harry in trouble? Like, how would that have gotten... We said, how would that have gotten Harry... What did we say, Micah? I remember it, but I don't.
Putting me on the spot.
Or Eric?
I don't...
Yeah, it was how would that stop him from going to Hogwarts, dropping a cake on his...
Right, that's it.
So unless Dobby knew that using a hover charm, unless he knew the way that the Ministry tracks underage magic, which is possible they did, but I don't know, that letter from the Ministry...
Right, because wouldn't the Ministry have detected Dobby was doing it instead of Harry?
No, they wouldn't, because if you're under the same house as an underage wizard and you're the only wizard in the house, they just scan it. Like, that's how Harry got in trouble for it. But at the same time, he wasn't expelled. When he used magic in movie 5, the Patronus charm, a far less hurtful, harmful spell than the hover charm can be, right. I suppose. He was expelled from Hogwarts. So, and just on the spot.
Those were completely different circumstances, though.
They were.
It wasn't the Patronus that got Harry expelled. It was that there were people who wanted him expelled.
Well, not only that, but they had the hover charm as the precedent as well.
That too.
Mm. But both were used in front of a Muggle, so that's something else too.
The next email is from Laura Cabus, 19 years old, from Honduras. Subject: Chamber of Secrets, chapter. Oh, okay. Hi, guys.
IP address.
Favorite food.
The information we collect from our listeners. All right.
Here's a letter. Hi, guys. I know that in the last episode you were wondering how Dobby could get Harry's mail, and I thought about Half-Blood Prince when Harry stays at the Burrow over the summer, and we find out that the Ministry is intercepting the Weasleys' mail. So I thought that maybe you could do a spell to change the address where the mail is delivered. Anyway, you guys are great, but I can't believe you are rereading the books until now. Keep up the great work.
Well, I imagine Dobby would, kind of just park outside the window and wait for the mail to come, and then
I'll
he'd
take
be like,
that.
Yeah, he would just intercept it. I mean, I doubt he had to do some complex spell. I mean,
yeah, it probably is something simple like that, isn't it? He would just wait and be invisible outside the mailbox.
What I thought was interesting was that, no owl appeared outside Privet Drive, and Harry's owl Hedwig was locked in her cage. So Dobby was able to intercept mail, but Harry didn't notice anything strange like Hedwig not reappearing. Or, if he had sent her out, if he was able to send letters to his friends.
Right, and I think would Hedwig give the mail to Dobby, or would she want to take it directly to Harry? It'd probably be easier for some random owl to get the mail from them than from Hedwig.
And it's weird because you got to assume that, like, Ron Weasley used Errol, the near-death owl, to deliver some letters, and Errol's been known to, quote, get lost or whatever, but none of those letters were delivered, so it was really, I don't know, it's just really weird, but it was kind of cool how Dobby had somehow managed to intercept all of his mail.
Micah, could you read the last email?
Last email comes from Grant of Brisbane, Australia, and he says, "Hi, MuggleCasters, great show, especially with chapter by chapter at the beginning just after the news. Keep that up. Something that nobody seems to have picked up on is that Dobby was acting under Lucius Malfoy's orders that he could not disobey, no matter what his personal opinions. If you don't understand Dobby's actions, it's because you're missing this point."
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right?
Slapping us.
Man.
Everything Dobby did was to prevent Harry from returning to Hogwarts, no matter what reasons he gave for his actions. He was rationalizing his behavior, not necessarily telling the truth. Lucius Malfoy didn't want Harry at Hogwarts because he didn't want Harry interfering with his plans for the diary. Harry had already thwarted Voldemort once at the end of Philosopher's Stone, and Lucius was trying to make sure Harry wasn't there to interfere this time. There were no terrible plans for Harry if he returned to Hogwarts other than what Dobby was going to do at Lucius's bidding. Malfoy did not know that Tom Riddle would have a chance to kill Harry. That was unexpected. Riddle says as much. Whatever the diary told Lucius, killing Harry was not part of the plan. Dobby is sending mixed messages because he's acting against his will. He likes Harry, but he is under orders to prevent Harry from returning, the cake, the barrier at the platform, and so on. Even attacking Harry with the bludger in Quidditch was to chase Harry away from Hogwarts. Not something Dobby wanted to do, he was compelled.
I feel opposite about this. Where's the proof?
Too.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, it seems like, that's the thing. That's the funny, joke. Try not to help me from now on, Dobby. Because, things like the bludger attack were a house elf without orders, behaving the way he thought he had to because of his mixed emotions inside. Dobby is the symbol for house elf empowerment because he follows his own. I didn't think he was sent to the Privet Drive at all, and that was the point.
No.
Well, yeah,
Dobby
there's kept saying evidence. He'd have to shut his hands in the oven.
That's the reason why he was beating the crap out of himself throughout the book.
Because he wasn't supposed to be. Not that he was ordered to Privet Drive.
Yeah, because this person says here, Lucius didn't want Harry at Hogwarts because he didn't want Harry interfering with his plans for the diary. That doesn't make any sense. You guys are right. It's the opposite here.
Yeah, there's no evidence to support that Lucius never wanted Harry at Hogwarts.
Right, and
the entire book.
Yeah, and an opportunity to refute it would be that when Riddle is telling Harry at the end about how he discovered Harry's existence, it was through Ginny writing about Harry that he even really discovered that Harry had been the fall of Voldemort, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Well, it's because Dobby knew of the plan, the evil plan that was going to happen, and he wanted to keep Harry away from there.
That's why he was trying to prevent Harry.
I don't think we missed anything, and he was actually sent to Privet Drive. I don't think that's how it happened. But thanks for the attitude, Brisbane.
No. It's an interesting point if it was actually true.
Yeah. But like Ben said, the important thing to keep in mind is that Dobby was trying to protect Harry against coming to school because he knew what Lucius was doing with the diary. So,
Right.
anyway, let's move on now to this week's chapter by chapter segment, which is chapters 4 through 6 in Chamber of Secrets. And these 3 chapters basically focus on Harry's preparation, journey, and start at Hogwarts.
His second year.
Yes, and we're going to start with chapter 4, which was Flourish and Blots.
We don't have music for this, do we yet? Like chapter by chapter.
No, I'm sorry.
No intro.
Gotta hire some people to do that. Micah, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I just gotta find it in the doc. Okay. So the first chapter at Flourish and Blots.
Fourth chapter.
Well, technically.
All right,
The first chapter we're discussing. Yeah, all right. But it starts off they're still at the Burrow, and Harry notes that everyone at the Burrow seems to like him, which is a huge contrast from what he's used to his time at Privet Drive. And during his time there, he feels extremely guilty hearing the Weasleys discussing their finances once all the letters from Hogwarts arrive, and how they're going to pay for everything now with Ginny going to school as well. And it particularly gets worse even later in the chapter when he goes to Gringotts and he tries to... What?
No, go ahead.
What are you laughing at?
Well, it was kind of a funny thing how Harry was trying to hide all his gold sitting in his vault from the Weasley's eyes.
And the way it was written, was like the saddest excerpt from the books, because it describes the Weasley's vault as being this giant, cavernous, empty.
Yeah.
And Molly's like sweeping, the corners, trying to see if there's a little, a sickle or a nut that may have been left somewhere. So sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. I need to clear this up.
What?
Okay, do you guys remember the Scholastic Pronunciation Guide?
Yes.
Okay. Is it
Yeah.
Canute or is it nut?
Right.
Is it a Canute or is it a nut?
I don't know. We'll find out. We'll have to consult that thing.
Well, the pronunciation guide says Canute.
Well, then it must be Canute.
All right.
I called it Canute for about 5 years, and then I switched back to nut.
Well, why would they even bother confusing kids? Like, obviously that reads as nut. Correct me if I'm nuts, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to.
Boo.
Oh, so I tried.
But yeah, the Weasleys only have, I think they said they only have one galleon, like a few sickles and one galleon in their entire vault.
All right, here we go. This is the official pronunciation according to Scholastic.
Knut.
Canutes. Let's hear it again.
Knut.
Canutes.
Those British people.
That's
don't know what they're
ridiculous.
talking about.
Canutes.
Well, no, they have the little pronunciation spelling, and it's got an apostrophe after the K. So, Canutes.
That might be how they pronounced it in English, but we speak American.
American.
And
Yeah,
there it's
exactly.
America.
We can just ask J.K. Rowling when she's on the show next week.
Right. The pronunciation guide is laughing at us. Go ahead. So yeah, I mean that I agree with Emerson. It was well written, and you feel for Harry when he's trying to keep it.
You can just picture him cracking the door to his vault open, and the gold spilling out.
Yeah.
The hallway.
And he is a very modest person, so it really must have been hard.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But another question would be, why did he never offer to pay for anything for the Weasleys?
He did.
Why
though.
should he,
He
though?
gave his whole Triwizard winnings to the Weasley. But I think that's where he found it was appropriate. Is the thing like, Harry? I'm sure Harry would have, and Harry's bought food and stuff like the trolley, for instance. In year 1, he bought all that candy for him and Ron. But I just don't think that was. I mean, it just wasn't appropriate, like an opportune moment for him to do that.
I get the feeling that Ron's a mooch. He probably never has lunch money. He never has anything, and he's always making Harry buy him crap. Like they're in in Hogsmeade, and he just goes crazy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think it was the right time for Harry to be like lending the Weasleys money, and really, I don't think they would have accepted it.
Well, I mean, Harry walks up to Molly and Arthur in front of their kids and is like, "Here, take this for your school supplies."
Right.
That would be kind of
My dead parents left this for me.
Yeah, they feel guilty.
All right.
So then we get into Nocturne Alley, and there's a lot of little things hidden in this room. First, on page 50, we see this quote. Harry looked quickly around and spotted a large black cabinet to his left.
The Vanishing Cabinet.
The Vanishing Cabinet.
Borgin and Burkes.
So that was some beautiful foreshadowing. And then some other lines, page 51 and 52. "Can I have that?" interrupted Draco, pointing at the withered hand on its cushion. "Ah, the hand of glory," said Mr. Borgin, abandoning Mr. Malfoy's list and scurrying over to Draco. "Insert a candle, and it gives light only to the holder. Best friend of thieves and plunderers. Your son has fine taste, sir."
Wow. I'm going to vote for a Andrew Sims version of the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets audiobook.
Oh, thanks.
That was
Perhaps,
very well done.
perhaps the most intriguing thing about analyzing the Harry Potter books is that unlike a movie, when they introduce a new character or they deliberately, the camera zooms in on something and it's clearly meant to foreshadow, J.K. Rowling introduces so many characters and so many magical objects and so many places and so many things that you just have no idea what's foreshadowing and no idea what's just
Right.
her
Eccentric?
imagination.
Right.
Yeah.
What's just her ability to create a world so vivid as the Harry Potter world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And these things come into play. I mean, this Borgin and Burkes, little did we know at this point that Voldemort used to work there, and that sort of thing. So there's all these coincidences, but there's also, characters like Emerson Zed that were just introduced either far before their time or that are still introduced and still even fleshed out a bit, who are just there in the moment for, comedic relief or, any other kind of, various reasons.
Yeah,
But I
it's
just don't
safe
think I
to
don't
say
think
a
I've
lot
ever
of
read a
thought
book or
went into this.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just saying it's safe to say a lot of thought went into.
Yeah, I
all
don't think
this.
I've ever read a book or seen a movie that introduced so many pieces of unnecessary information, but still kept you on your toes because you knew some of it was going to be important.
Right.
So instead of the movie, the camera that lingers for 5.5 minutes, on a number or a face, it's so subtle. It seems so unimportant.
And like Ben said, I mean, the just the planning ahead to think you're going to include this or the Hand of Glory and many other little hints 5-6 books later. It's amazing.
Now,
I wonder what thought process led to her inserting these random clues
I don't
throughout the
know.
books. Did she just come up did she just go back and say, maybe I can throw the Hand of Glory in here, see if they catch that.
Well, maybe she could have us all fooled, and while she's writing book 6 and book 7, she just goes back into the older books, finds some things she can reference. I mean, that sounds like we're cheapening her writing, but
Oh, that's smart though.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, or maybe
Why reinvent the wheel?
Right. Or she could have it all in her head. I mean, we do know she planned out most of the series.
And all
from
of
the
these
get-go.
objects, too, even if they're not exact replicas, they are inspired by actual artifacts. Like, I mean, I'm not just talking about the Sorcerer's Stone and what she did with that, but things like the Hand of Glory and opal necklaces, all of that may have some historical connotations. When she talks about druids, being a certain place or doing a certain thing, or some hags laughing in a bar, it's significant because of other historical or fictitious accounts, other literary references that she's playing on. She's brilliant. All these little various things have all sorts of meaning, every single little bit of it. That's why a lot of people, that's why it's very easy to get lost in this series, why you could live off nothing but it for a while.
All right, well, let's continue moving along. Another quote of some beautiful foreshadowing. Draco paused to examine a long coil of hangman's rope and to read, smirking, the card propped on a magnificent necklace of opals. Is that the right pronunciation?
Caution, do not touch if you are Katie Bell.
Caution, do not touch. Cursed has claimed the lives of 19 Muggle owners to date.
19. Now, why do you think she put 19 in there?
That is a big number.
19. 1 plus 9 is 10. 9 minus 1 is 8. Minus 1 is 7. meaning 7 books,
Ben,
7 years at Hogwarts.
We probably talked about this at some point. When we analyzed Half-Blood Prince, we probably devoted a whole episode to it.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I just think it's so funny because overanalyzing things is what we do, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times I remember a few years ago there was a Christmas post on MuggleNet because J.K. Rowling did an update on her site, and we just took it way too far because it was like, if you take the number of presents beneath the tree minus the number of Christmas tree ornaments divided
the number
by
of purple ornaments.
That was I'm not going to say who, but one of our staff members came up with that idea and insisted it would be posted. It was an insane theory.
It was just a little bit crazy.
It was crazy. I completely agree. Oh man,
when they were reading the scene, and Draco sees the magnificent necklace of opals, and it says "Do not touch," has killed 19 people. They almost just kind of visualize this necklace just kind of like hanging there, and kind of imagine if you were just walking through the store and you kind of tripped and fell and died.
I'd still be tempted to touch it because I'd be like, does this really kill people?
Kill me, yeah.
Ben, come over here. Come try this for me.
Try what?
Touching the opal necklace.
Oh, you have one?
No, I was pretending.
Oh.
And the other thing, it doesn't say how it kills them. Like, does it strangle them? I mean, we don't know at this point that if you touch
it makes them fly up in the air 20 feet, and then they spin around in circles and
Right.
look really creepy.
Well, we know that, but wouldn't it just be like any other Muggle device that doesn't behave the way it should, like teapots eating people,
I don't know.
or a necklace strangling people? It's awesome.
And we also, while he's in Borgin and Burkes, hear from Lucius. He says, "I would remind you that it is not prudent to appear less than fond of Harry Potter, not when most of our kind regard him as the hero that made the Dark Lord disappear."
So, do you guys think was Lucius trying to? He was still mentoring Harry to say, "Hey, don't make fun of him," but that changes later on in the books, where Lucius doesn't really care. Why was he still telling him to care at this point, to pay Harry respect or show respect?
Because at the time you have to look at the conditions in the wizarding world. The Dark Lord isn't back on the rise at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's still, Harry's still the big hero, and the Malfoys are they're big on appearance, and that's the entire way they were able to get out of. When the Dark Lord fell the first time, everyone just said they were under the Imperious Curse, or they really weren't serving him and that kind of thing, and so they need to maintain that image. And if their kids running around hating Harry Potter, then it's that would be detrimental to that image.
Yeah, you're right.
During the conversation, Borgin mentions Malfoy's manner, and it's something that is kind of little, but it's stressed in italics by J.K. Rowling. And I was just wondering, do you think this was a clue to tie back into the discussion that Ron and Fred and George and Harry had in the car ride over to the Burrow? They're talking about Lucius Malfoy and the fact that he has this manner, and somebody of that stature would have a house elf. So, as Emerson was pointing out before, there's all these little things throughout the course of the books, but could that be a tie back to that conversation they were having to kind of give the reader a hint that Dobby could belong to the Malfoys?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the reader's going to, close reader's going to say, "Oh, he has a manner," and it's kind of fits his stature. And but yeah, house elves. It's already been stated that house elves live in manors, so can definitely be made that connection. And it's likely that Dobby couldn't have been, with the Malfoys, but he was in the end. So it's cool.
And I don't think there's much discussion in this, but then we meet Lucius Malfoy, and he says, "I would have thought you'd be ashamed that a girl of no wizard family beat you in every exam." He snapped at Draco. Oh. And Mr. Weasley loves the fact that Lucius was selling at Borgin and Burkes. This is something we find out shortly thereafter. And it means that he's worried.
It's interesting that Harry's reaction to that, Lucius bullying Draco, is actually...
He was happy to see it. Yeah.
He says, "Ha," because he feels great that Draco feels like crap.
Right.
But actually, it's kind of in contrast to how Harry normally feels, because his best friend was just insulted. I mean, in a way, it was kind of like...
Well, he was kind of giving her props in a way. I mean, indirectly, because she was the top in the class. I mean, even though she doesn't have a wizard family, at least he didn't call her mudblood.
But he's just picking on his own kid, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and we get a real taste for him, though. I mean, talking about a girl of no wizard family, it kind of gives you an idea of who he is as an individual and, you know, what his views are.
Yeah.
He's a prejudiced bastard.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then moving along, we see that Mr. Weasley likes the idea of spending time with Muggles, and in particular Hermione's parents. We see him talking them up. And
I feel like I can totally relate to Arthur when it comes to his fascination with Muggles. Sorry, I know this is like the most unimportant part of the entire chapter, perhaps the entire book series. But if I were a wizard and I got used to just flicking my fingers and making stuff happen, like to find out the amazingly complex system of mechanics and social order that the Muggles have come up with to get by without magic, like think of how complex a car is or a computer is.
Yeah.
I would feel stupid compared to Muggles.
Right. Well, and
like
it's
a
sort
big
of
dumb jock who just can like lift things up instead of having to have these. You know, Muggles would be awesome.
well, it's sort of like people in the Stone Age talking to us and being fascinated by you know, the stuff we created. You know, cavemen could never have imagined cars.
To see what we've done with the wheel would just be to
right.
blow their mind.
Exactly.
I mean, donuts
or vice versa, us talking to cavemen and being like, how did you survive without an iPhone? I still ask some people that question.
I don't know how I do it, Andrew.
Yeah, me neither.
Andrew's had like 7 iPhones in the past 2 years.
Oh God! But
That's not true.
there's this note here, guys. Is somebody going to read that on?
Yeah,
this note?
my point with this was Hermione's parents were in Diagon Alley. Joe made that clear. But my question is, aren't there any rules? Are there any limits who's allowed to enter?
There's a bouncer, actually.
Well, I guess that would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, there's got to be some sort of regulation, because I guess Hermione's parents know that they can't just bring anyone in and be like, hey, everybody come check out this magic stuff. But where is the line? Can they tell extended family members about Hermione? Can they not? Because, you know, the ministry's all secret. They don't want any magic to get out.
Yeah, but yet they have these totally Muggle people. Totally Muggle. Like, completely Muggle.
Yeah, in Diagon Alley, seeing all this magic.
And my
Let's
question
be
is,
real here.
what can and can't they see? Is the other thing, because I mean, there's like this recurring theme in the books. Oh, Muggles, they don't notice nothing, do they? And you know, it's Dan Shunpike in Prisoner of Azkaban. But you know, they can obviously occupy this space because they're here in Diagon Alley. And what do they make of it? And
what if the Muggles are just sitting there and they have no idea? They can't see anything going on. They're just so confused and like, this is so boring.
Well, what
are we doing here?
Let's be honest, though. If the wizarding world were real, it would be on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like the cat would
Right.
be let out of the bag. Somebody would be like, "Oh my god,
I'm in the wizard." Yeah, I'm staring at moving paintings. Yeah,
But I mean, there are other things like places like Hogwarts that you know make you mentally, you know, remember that you've forgotten something when you show up. You know, are there similar restrictions on Muggles who visit Diagon Alley to accompany their kid to school?
Well, I guess they have to let parents, because you know parents want to protect their kids. I don't know. I think that would be another interesting. Write that down, Micah. Interesting question for Joe. Number
We got a lot of stuff.
492.
Maybe there's a
Prepare
charm
for
that
next
can measure. Maybe there's a charm that can measure intent. You're not allowed to enter Diagon Alley
Yeah.
if you have malicious intent.
They should apply that to Hogwarts students then, so that they don't become Voldemort.
All right. Let's continue.
All right.
So we meet Gilderoy Lockhart, and he just throws Harry into the spotlight. The confrontation follows the Draco, and J.K. Rowling again stresses in italics, referring to Ginny as Harry's girlfriend. Draco referring to Ginny as Harry's girlfriend. Is this foreshadowing, or is she just trying to emphasize the sneering? I doubt it's foreshadowing at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I mean,
It's not direct foreshadowing.
it's not really foreshadowing.
I mean, it's because of the events, like it's because of comments like that early in the series that I was so open to and like happy that Ginny and Harry did get together.
Yeah, but you also have to look at it from the 11 or 12-year-old age range, where, you know, in elementary school or middle school, when you say she your girlfriend, you know, it's like, no, what are you talking about? Like, everyone is offended to, be teased that someone has a girlfriend. That kind of thing.
But so far, just in this chapter, we've gone over at least two things already that are items that play a significant role in Book 6. There are certain books in the Harry Potter series that go together quite similarly. I don't know if you guys you get like 2 and 6, for instance, are very similar. We're talking about Borgin and Burkes, which we learn all about the backstory of in Book 6. Right. Harry, Ginny is Harry's girlfriend. The Horcruxes, is a big deal because the first Horcrux is the diary, which happened in Book 2 and becomes a big role in Book 6.
Well, we've talked about this before. Yeah, these books are. We had a main discussion on this. How 1 is like 7, 2 is like 6, 3 is like 5.
Yeah.
And then 4 is
just
just
know
there.
2 is like 6. So we're seeing lots of these things that connect to later books and specifically 6.
Chamber of Secrets and Half-Blood Prince especially are very closely connected. And as we all know, we've brought up a million times, there was, I may have it backwards, there was a chapter that was going to be in Chamber of Secrets that was moved to Half-Blood Prince, correct?
Yeah, I think she said that.
Yeah. Okay, so then we get into this fight between Arthur and Lucius. And honestly, I forgot about this because I'm so used to seeing the movie where this doesn't happen, but we'll talk about that later. We really begin to see the core differences between these two pureblood families. This is where Lucius slips the diary to Ginny. And as Micah writes, isn't that awfully convenient?
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances that he runs into the Weasleys, that he can slip it into Ginny's, I forget which book it was, you learn later in Chamber of Secrets which book it got put into, but even in the movie, obviously, it's one of those camera moments where it's not really up close, but you can kind of see it happening.
You see it, yeah. There's a specific
shot. There's no hint to it, though, here.
Right.
Which makes it kind of, at the end of the book, it's, well, how did Harry figure out that it was Lucius who slipped it in at Diagon Alley? Other than Dobby just, nodding his head. But
right.
It's just one of those things where you'd think with all the detail that J.K. Rowling puts into the books that she would have somehow been able to write her way around it.
Well, there is the reference when later in this chapter, it's the same chapter when Ginny says, "Oh, I forgot my diary," and they have to go back to the Burrow trying to get to King's Cross on time when they have to go back.
It's the beginning of the next chapter.
For her diary. Oh, it is. Sorry, my bad. But yeah, and it's like none of the family says, "Oh, you've never had diary before," but it's a specific mention of Ginny's diary, which, the movie did it better at showing, Lucius slipping. In the book, it's an all-out fist fight, as Andrew said. So it's whereas it's conceivable. Yeah, whereas it's conceivable that Lucius would do that. It is a question, that Harry knew that that's what had happened. But I guess what's
how could they have like hinted at the slip? Like, what could they have said? Like, Ginny's cauldron mysteriously had an extra book in it.
Well, no, maybe Joe could have highlighted Lucius putting the book in. Harry could have sworn it looked just a tad different than the one she had in there prior. I don't know. Come on, it's J.K. Rowling.
Is there. It's a distraction.
But if you read it at the time, you wouldn't have thought about it.
Well, I mean, isn't it awfully convenient? That's kind of like saying, well, I mean, they can do magic. Isn't that like really convenient?
Yes, but okay.
How would the book have gotten there otherwise? That's the better question, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Well,
how would the diary have gotten...
How would it have ended up at Hogwarts?
Oh, yeah. Well, just give it to Draco.
It was mailed. Yeah, maybe Joe could have read.
There's a million ways it could have got to Hogwarts.
Yeah, I just think reading it again after knowing what happens, it would have been cool to like see the little hint.
I agree with that.
Let's move on though. Some random other little facts just to note to wrap up this chapter. Ginny still acts weird around Harry. Percy has been holed up in his room for most of the summer. We're introduced to Travel by Floo Powder.
Ooh.
Mrs. Weasley says when the letters arrive at the Burrow that Dumbledore, quote, doesn't miss a trick, end quote. She jokes at the expense... there are jokes at the expense of the bird's molting gray feather duster. Wait, what? What is this?
I put that in. I'm sorry. It's not in proper person. There are two jokes about the owls, about Errol. Like, at first, Harry thinks Errol is a molten gray feather duster.
Oh.
Turns out he's a bird.
Right.
And then Hermione's note to Ron saying, I hope Harry's okay, but if you want to tell me about it, you should probably use a different bird because another delivery might finish your one off.
Yeah.
It was a great Hermione line. It's probably one of my favorite things she's said or written, and I thought I'd put it in because it's like, why is J.K. Rowling being cruel to the birds? Like,
Right.
what did birds ever do to J.K. Rowling?
Well, she
That's a
must
good
have
question.
something about him. She killed Hedwig.
Yeah, exploded Hedwig.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next chapter, the Whomping Willow. So Eric mentioned this earlier. There's a quote on page 66. They had almost reached the highway when Ginny shrieked that she had left her diary. Now, I don't really see it as a hint. I think it's sort of a clever little addition. But then we also saw... Who else forgot something? Fred or George?
Forgot
Yeah.
a broomstick. George
right.
forgot his fireworks, or the other way around.
But man, she leaves a diary at home. This book's over. You know?
Yeah, it's
There's no point. Like,
If Arthur Weasley said, screw it, I'll mail it to you. Well,
so it's really Arthur's fault.
for not being a firmer father
Right.
and not saying, no, you forgot
probably
your dead
would've
book. Here,
mailed
get it
it.
when you get home.
And then this is also the chapter where Harry and Ron cannot get through the entrance to platform 9 3/4. And so this brings up a couple debates. They try to get in, then they're like, oh shoot, what should we do? And Ron notes that he doesn't know when his parents will be coming back, although it should be kind of obvious because they waited till they tried to get in like a minute before the train left. Then they knew the train had left. So theoretically, his parents should have been coming out very soon thereafter. So the question is, why didn't they, ignoring the fact that this is a story and Joe could have just simply changed the plot, the question is, why did they take the car? Why couldn't they have just waited for Ron's parents?
Because you have to look at the fact that they just came off year one, where they were these big heroes, where they're doing big things, and whenever a big problem presents itself, you come up with an even bigger solution. And so in this
Nice way of
situation,
putting it.
they're pretty confident in
Right.
themselves, and they think,
Yeah.
you know what? We'll just take the car. I mean, Mom and Dad can operate. It all makes sense. And without really thinking it through, like the kids they were at the time, they
Yeah.
just dived head on, and they screwed up.
Honestly, I think it's because J.K. Rowling wanted to put the scene with the flying car, and I think she just didn't do
that's the cop out.
I don't see. There's like you said, the parents should have come out and like a minute later. J.K. Rowling could have wrote a better excuse in there, like, oh well, the parents would apparate straight back to their house, or maybe the parents wouldn't come back, and then then there'd be a legit excuse because then they could be a day late getting to Hogwarts or something like that.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
And
But
then-
taking the car was Ron's idea. I mean, it wasn't anybody else. So I mean, Ron could be. I mean, it's a grandeur thing, I guess, according to Ben. But it was Ron's idea. Like, hey, wait, Harry, the car.
Yep.
So.
All right. Go ahead, Mikey. You want to take the next point?
Yep. So they eventually work their way to Hogwarts, and they crash into the Whomping Willow. And as they're going up to the castle, they're greeted by Snape. And when asking about the car with no seemingly prior knowledge, J.K. Rowling notes this wasn't the first time Snape had given Harry the impression of being able to read minds. So, we all know that Snape is very accomplished at reading people's minds. It's also referenced in Sorcerer's Stone. So, again, just a little bit of foreshadowing, I think, as to what Snape is able to do.
So, my question is if a teacher is able to read a student's mind, can they get them in trouble for something like, like when Harry has the Marauders map or whatever in Prisoner of Azkaban, and Snape is like, what is this stupid thing, And could he, read his mind and get him in trouble for the information that he never actually divulged, but his mind actually divulged it? Does that make sense?
Well, the question is too, like, mind reading and actually reading someone's thoughts and memory, because there are plenty of moments in the book where Dumbledore gives Harry this piercing stare. I mean, Dumbledore does it too, but Snape, giving Harry the impression he can read minds. But then, that's something separate from actually casting Legilimens. And if you, I mean, because you remember in class with Snape and Harry, Harry like relives the memories that Snape is receiving, and seeing as that how that doesn't happen here, in the book, just at this moment, it's not the same thing. That Snape can get a general, I guess, idea maybe of what's going on, but he's not reading, Harry's thoughts. He's not intruding into his mind that far. So it seems like it's
more
a
the
completely
simple
separate
things,
thing.
though.
Yeah.
Like in Sorcerer's Stone, he seems to think that Snape knows that Harry is gaining more and more knowledge about the Sorcerer's Stone because everywhere he seems to go, Snape seems to show up. And again, here, he seems to be able to read Harry's mind, at least at the very basic level, to know what happened. He knew about the car. How would he possibly know about the car? Maybe he saw it driving across the grounds. I don't know.
Well, he had the copy of the Evening Prophet. I mean, that was in the book and the movie.
Yeah, you're right. But at the same time, it's just one of those things that I think is written in there so that when you go back and reread the series, you're like, oh, she threw that in there as a little hint.
Well, the question here in the notes is, is that about Snape trying to protect Harry? Why did Snape particularly notice, in particular, that Ron and Harry were particularly not in the Great Hall at the time of the sorting, and come out and look for them? Was he especially concerned with Harry getting to Hogwarts? And if so, why?
Well, maybe Dumbledore said to go look for him. I don't know. He trusts Snape.
Yeah, I don't know. I was wondering about that because it just seems like it seemed like it was sort of a testament to him caring, even though he wouldn't show it, and even though Harry Ron wouldn't even consider it.
Especially after that wonderful... Snape has perhaps the best entrance ever in this book, when Ron and Harry here are debating whether or not he got sacked.
Right.
It's one of the greatest entrances, I think, in this series.
Well, they should have put that in the movie, because that would have probably been pretty funny.
Yeah. But I also wanted to mention, we're going to get into the other things in this chapter. We were just talking about that night right before they leave for school, and Ginny forgets her diary. So that's for one evening from the time they got back from Diagon Alley and before they left the next morning, that both a seventh of Voldemort's soul and a convicted murderer, or a non-convicted murderer, was living as a rat in Ron's bedroom. The burrow was full of some very evil stuff for that one evening. A Horcrux and Peter Pettigrew. I was just thinking that because
two Horcruxes.
Two? Sorry, what? Oh, well,
Harry.
Sorry, Ben. The two published authors among us have corrected me.
One of them was Micah.
That was Micah.
I thought it was Ben.
Clean the crap out of your ears.
Okay, well, we gotta speed this up a little faster. Speed it up a little more, I should say. Other things to note, Ron's wand snaps. Micah, real quick, was there anything you wanted to say about that?
No, that's why it's just other things to note.
Oh, okay. Well, that's one thing to note.
And Dumbledore's humor, it always shines through.
It does, Ben. What did he say in this chapter that really shined through?
He said, "Come, Severus, there's a delicious-looking custard tart I want to sample."
I thought that was funny, because Dumbledore is always about the food and socks, random stuff, knitting patterns.
Tarts, yeah.
Yep. So that's good. Okay, so the final chapter we're talking about today, Gilderoy Lockhart. It starts off with Ron getting the Howler, and Harry feels terrible for what he did after hearing Mr. Weasley was facing an inquiry at work. And it's really funny, of course, because we see, and it turned out great in the movie too, Mrs. Weasley yelling at Ron, and it's a really embarrassing moment for Ron too. And then Lockhart later on thinks that the flying car. He pulls Harry aside. He's about to go into herbology, and this is really funny. And Lockhart was so obnoxious in this book. I had forgotten. He thinks that the flying car was a publicity stunt after he gave Harry a taste of fame in Flourish and Bots. He says, "When I was 12, I was just as much of a nobody as you are now. In fact, I'd say I was even more of a nobody. I mean, a few people have heard of you, haven't they? All that business with he who must not be named." thought that was so funny.
Fame is a fickle friend.
Celebrity is as celebrity does.
Is he supposed to be like Hogwarts' resident metrosexual?
Yes,
I thought
absolutely.
somebody described him that way. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was J.K. Rowling.
I feel like I was going to say it may have been her.
Well,
I don't think she called him a metrosexual, though. I don't think Joe talks about that stuff.
He's just one of those people who's so self-absorbed that they, go as far as to, think that everything's about them. Like, I gave you that taste of fame. Like, why?
I remember the people that were. Do you guys remember the people that would come forward and say, "Hey, Joe based Lockhart on me"? There were like at least 2 people that said that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that song "You're So Vain."
Yeah,
I know I've been saying this for about a decade now, but I still think that Cary Elwes would have been an amazing Gilderoy Lockhart.
Yeah.
Who?
The guy from Princess Bride and Robin Hood.
Though, do you not like Kenneth Branagh as?
No, he was good, but I think Cary Elwes would have been amazing.
Yeah, I think he should do something in movie 7.
And then, of course, there's the Mandrake Mayhem, all that crazy stuff going on, which was a clever little plot, but there's not much to discuss, so we'll just go right past it. We also meet Colin Creevey, and Lockhart shows up again thinking Harry is signing photographs of himself. And that was really well written. Lockhart's like, oh, I should have known it was Harry. Everyone was taunting. And so that was funny.
And there's an interesting quote from Ron.
In the mic.
Oh, there's an interesting quote from Ron. You'd better hope Creevey doesn't meet Ginny, or they'll be starting a Harry Potter fan club.
And that's kind of interesting because right around then was like when MuggleNet and all these Harry Potter fan clubs were kicking off. I thought
when the book was published. Yeah,
I mean it's sort of kind of funny timing. When I read that, I was like, ah.
Thanks, Ron. Good idea. Emerson, we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later.
Now I know how you got the idea. You stole it from Ron.
And then Lockhart attempts to teach Defense Against the Dark Arts, and he, of course, fails miserably. And Ron's the first to question him. He says, can you believe him? Because this is like when the Pixies are happening.
Right.
Pisky, pisky, pestronomy.
And then Harry, of course, is, he doesn't have a clue what he's doing. And Hermione is kind of love-struck by Lockhart. And she's, defending him because he wrote books. And if he writes books, then he must know what he's talking about.
And Ron, of course, calls it by says he's done all this stuff. So that was interesting. Does anyone remember reading this for the first time and being like, I wonder if he was full of it, or did he actually do all these things?
No, that scene made it pretty clear that he didn't.
Yeah.
he definitely did not perform all those amazing feats.
So the question was, did he fake them all, or?
He couldn't even handle Pixies.
He absolutely did. Yeah, he absolutely did fake them all, yeah. Okay, so let's get into some listener questions and tweets.
Cat16 from Los Angeles, California. SoCal holler.
SoCal, baby. Woo!
Me and Andrew, I have to announce I'm permanently a resident of Southern California now. I have
permanently? You're not like sneaking in someone's room while they're away on vacation?
No, I actually have an apartment now.
Damn.
That's why I'm live here in the MuggleCast studio, and you can expect more of this moving forward here in the future.
Glad to hear it.
So, again, Cat16 from SoCal writes, Hey, MuggleCast, I just listened to the latest podcast, number 182, in which you guys talked about discussing chapters 4, 5, and 6 of Chamber of Secrets in your next episode. After going back and rereading these chapters, the Flourish and Blots bit got me wondering, what happens to wizarding families like the Weasleys who are short of money and are sending their kids to Hogwarts? When Hogwarts letters are sent out to first-year students, does the school faculty take into consideration whether or not the family can actually afford to send their kid to the school? I don't know if there's any kind of welfare system in the wizarding world or support from Hogwarts to help families in need, but it's obvious not everyone can live luxuriously like the Malfoys, where sending their kid to Hogwarts costs them next to nothing. If the family can't send their kid to Hogwarts, what other alternative do they have? Anyway, just wondering about what you guys thought. Love the show. It makes the bus ride to and from school much more enjoyable. I look forward to the next podcast. Cat.
Don't you think like most colleges,
financial aid,
yeah.
student loans,
right?
You know, Green Gots probably has a program.
You got a loan business on the side.
I would like to know what Muggle-born families do when they come to school. Is there like a galleon pound exchange rate?
Well, obviously.
Makes me wonder why there would be, because
there is. Yeah, there's a reference in Chamber of Secrets to that.
When we first meet
Hermione's parents,
okay, there is 17 sickles to it. Yeah, but it's like, I wonder why wizards couldn't just easily conjure up fake, pounds, dollars, and
they probably have waited
to exchange money.
Those goblins are clever.
Yeah, they know how to. They could probably detect the fake stuff.
No, I don't mean for that. I mean, if wizards wanted to use Muggle money for some reason, it seems altogether too easy for them to conjure up fake pound notes or fake dollar bills, and no Muggle's going to be able to detect it.
Or they could just walk into a Muggle store and just stun everybody really quick.
Yeah, exactly. There's a million spells they could use if they wanted any Muggle goods.
Well, Joe wrote this when the world wasn't as crazy as it is today. So
I know. What's going on?
So wait, you're telling me 10 years from now they're going to be questioning the galleon exchange rate?
Kind of speaking of that, there's this book that I really want to read. It's called The Magicians, and it's about this wizard who's in the real world. And apparently it's been getting really good reviews. It's relatively new. It's by Lev Grossman, The Magicians. And I'm sure some of you out there have read it.
That sounds original.
There will be a movie about it.
It's basically about this guy who's a wizard in the real world, and that sort of reminded me of it, Emerson. So I'm sure some of you have read it, and I'm going to read it soon. But anyway, yeah, so I think we answered Kat's question. Micah, would you like to read the next email?
Oh, I get all the emails from Australia this week. This is from Alice Elizabeth Witt, 18, of Brisbane, Australia, and she says, "Hi, MuggleCasters. As I was reading Chapter 4 at Flourish and Blot, I noticed something that I initially thought was absolutely ridiculous. However, the imagery made me consider it further. On page 49 of the American edition, Joe describes traveling by flue powder. She wrote, "It felt as though he was being sucked down in a giant drain. This description made me ponder the origin of the term flue powder. It seemed to me that Joe was trying to draw a parallel between this form of travel and being flushed down a giant toilet. Further, the word flue itself does contain the English term for a toilet, loo, in it. Is it possible that Joe derived the term flue powder from the word loo, and in the latter, its description from being flushed down a toilet? I know this must seem really bizarre, though I think it would be interesting to consider it in more detail. Love listening to the show, especially the chapter-by-chapter discussions. Thank you so much for producing such an awesome podcast, Alice Elizabeth."
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, a flue is part of a chimney. It's spelled F-L-U-E, but it's what the British refer to. It's a duct. I'm looking this up on
but we're
Google.
talking about the loo, L-O-O.
No, it's like a perfect marriage of the two words.
Right.
It's perfect. Joe's done it before.
Different spelling,
right.
But the word is flue, and it's actually part of a chimney, so it's absolutely perfect for several reasons. I like this connection that Alice Witt has.
Good job, Alice.
Good job, Alice.
But it's funny because she's Australia, and I don't think that they have chimneys in Australia because it's never cold.
All right, and a couple tweets from PewterWolf13. Why do you think Lockhart actually took the job of Defense Against the Dark Arts? Any theories, guys?
Because he wanted another chance to
promote his book.
No, promote himself. Yeah,
sell his books. Yeah,
he's a shameless self-promoter. What else? Would expect no less.
Well, if you look at the list of required reading, all those Lockhart books, I think it was Hermione. He said almost the entire list was Lockhart.
Yeah,
so
boost sales.
Yeah,
sure.
Next tweet from Shannon McAdoo. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like Dumbledore would have known how flaky some of these teachers, like Lockhart, were. Thoughts?
Well, he was probably at this point, Dumbledore's aware of the curse that was put on the position, and he's like, "Well, this putz doesn't matter. We might as well just let him take the job, let him, go die or go to St. Mungo's, whatever."
That is very odd, though. Like every other Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher makes sense except for Lockhart.
What kind of position does that put Dumbledore in, though? Like, morally? Like, knowing that the next teacher he's going to hire is doomed. So it's like is that part of like the interview process? Oh, by the way, like this is a 1-year position. Like you don't have anything beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Lockhart just wanted to sell his books.
But with how smart he is,
no matter what,
why would you hire that guy? Although they did say in the book that not a lot of people were interested in the position because of its track record.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they always draw. She always draws up that they're a little desperate, but at the same time, I think the whole Lockhart being completely a fraud kind of grew on everybody. I mean, by the end of the year, the rest of the teachers are like, "Yeah, you really suck." But at the same time, it kind of took them a while to get there.
Right.
I don't know. So
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until if you look at Imposter Moody, fooling. I mean, he was able to fool Dumbledore, but he was really like he was, evil wizard and able to fool Dumbledore, but obviously he'd had some practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Lockhart, it's kind of like what you guys said.
This position, in Prisoner of Azkaban, I think it was Madame Pomfrey when Harry first comes in and he'd been tacked on the train and she learns that Lupin had given him chocolate. She says something along the lines of, "Finally, a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher who knows what he's doing."
Right.
Yeah.
I just had a really random thought. When talking about Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers, when Crouch was revealed to have been, or Moody was revealed to have been Crouch, did anybody else kind of have this image of the Scooby-Doo villain? And I would have done it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Yeah. That's so true. Real quick, let's talk about the movie. The movie adaptation of these scenes. The big one thing I noticed was Borgin and Burkes. I mean, that whole thing was missing. All those little hands. Am I right?
Well, there is a deleted scene that takes place in Borgin and Burkes. It wasn't much in the film. Harry basically just lands in the chimney and climbs out, and he's in the exterior of Nocturne Alley in the movie. In the deleted scene, Harry hears Malfoy and Draco in the shop and kind of watches them for a little bit, but it's not a long scene at all. But they did film that part of it. The question I had with this movie is they changed why Harry ends up in Diagon Alley. And it's interesting because the book just says he coughs and lands up in Nocturne Alley. But in the movie, he does that thing where he's like, diagonally, and
which I thought was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. At the same time, it's like one great too far. I wanted to kind of talk about that because it was a little bit different. When I was reading this chapter, it seemed that perhaps part of Harry, the part of him that was a Horcrux, wanted to take him to Borgin and Burkes, or was somehow used to traveling to this shop, or like he'd been there before, or having like a Horcrux acid flashback, however that happens. But I just thought it was very interesting.
Okay, and then the other thing that was cut was, like I mentioned earlier, Arthur and Lucius, that big fight. Do you guys think it was cut for the sake of keeping it a children's movie? Because that could have gotten pretty violent. And they wanted to keep it PG at the time, so maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't cut killing Dumbledore because it was violent.
Well, that was crucial.
Yeah, really.
Well, it was rated PG-13, first of all.
No,
physical fight. I think
killing
they
Dumbledore?
weren't. Columbus found a way to work.
Was PG.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that. Wow. Yeah, well, it's a little less violent. I mean, if you're seeing one guy shove another guy, like Dumbledore, you're just seeing him fall. Like, it's sad.
Yeah,
but...
it's hard to respect people who resort to physical violence, those crude adult males.
So, but there was just one other thing, though. There was another deleted scene, and it's actually Filch who finds Harry and Ron, right? And that's how they find out the fact that he's a squib. And they left that out of the... That doesn't come till later in Chamber of Secrets, but that was actually a deleted scene from the movie.
Yeah,
from earlier in the movie. And they added Ben's favorite line, and I'm wondering if you could do this in high def audio, Ben. When Harry falls out of the car, the
right.
That wasn't in the book.
Hold on. I can't. Your hands all sweaty.
That whole thing. And I remember watching the Chamber of Secrets trailer, which was the first movie I saw on time in theaters, being a fan, and just seeing that trailer where they find out the train is actually right behind them going over the viaduct.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, awesome little movie bit.
Yeah.
Way to liven up the scene, because in the book they're kind of just in the clouds dipping down.
Yes. So next week we're going to be talking about chapters 7 through 9, and it's time for quote quiz. It's a simple matter if you know what you're doing. If you need help, you know where I am.
Gilderoy Lockhart.
You knew it. We usually don't answer, but
Oh, really?
yeah, it's all right.
Oh, damn.
You got really into it, so I didn't want to stop you. Okay, so to wrap up the show today, Emerson, look, it's been 10 years now since you started MuggleNet, of course. You've explained it before. You've described yourself, you were a bored, homeschooled student. Was that the real reason why you started the fan site? Like, what really motivated you to actually start it, other than being bored?
Well, aside from the board thing, which I think I may have covered in the past.
Yes.
I had created a couple other failed websites. I found this free webpage maker, and I was just so excited about the fact that I could make a webpage, and it wasn't that hard to do, and I could just drag stuff around and pick colors, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world, that I could have stuff appear on the internet.
Right. What were your failed websites?
One was called Extreme Golf. And the other one was a Simpsons website.
Oh.
I don't remember what it was called.
So you just went after your passions and tried to make websites for them.
Exactly. I was thinking, what am I passionate about? And I really wasn't that passionate about golf, and I wasn't that passionate about The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And it was a couple weeks that I was sitting around trying to come up with a good idea for a website. And then it just kind of hit me that I had just finished the third Harry Potter book. Mm-hmm. I actually read this was a month after POA came out. I read the first 2 books in one night, and then the third book the next night. And I thought, wait a minute, Harry Potter, perfect. Yeah. But I went online and I checked out all the existing websites, and I thought, wow, these websites are huge, and they have billions of people visiting them. I thought, there's no way I can compete with this. There's no way. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I'm excited to have a guest book on my website in a black background instead of a white one.
Do you remember some of the other sites that were big, at least in your mind?
Yeah, there was HarryPotterFans.net.
I remember that one. Yeah,
that one was really big. There was the HP network, the HPN.
Okay,
was a big one. iHarryPotter.
Yeah.
.net was big for a while.
I remember the unofficial Harry Potter web club, or was that it? The unofficial.
Yeah, that was it. The one that was on Angel Fire.
Yeah.
Those were the big ones. Those are the ones I thought I could never compete with. I remember the first time I talked to the webmistress from the HPN. I was talking to her on AIM, and I was so freaked out. I was like, oh my god, this person's such an internet celebrity. She has such a big website.
That's how I was with you and Ben.
What about,
oh my god, she's taking too long to respond. There's no typing indicator. She must hate me.
Does anybody remember Dark Mark?
Yeah, that was a big one too. Yeah.
Death Curse? What about Death Curse?
Yeah.
Death-curse.
How about Grim Defeat? Do you remember that one?
Yes.
That one came along.
They did. They said that Dan Radcliffe died in a car accident, and that was their undoing.
That killed him. Wow. Oh, jeez. It's amazing how all these sites, I don't know, I guess they saw MuggleNet grow, and then they were like, screw it. Like, what happened? Why did they stop? Why do you think?
Because it's a marathon, not a sprint, baby.
I guess. Do you have any ideas, Emerson?
I don't know, actually. I kind of assumed that was just my own insulated perspective. Thought that they all quit and they were all still out there, and I just wasn't really having interaction with them. But I haven't really heard about it. It seems like a lot of websites did kind of just stop.
Be honest, you paid them off, didn't you?
Well, most people grow up and they grow out of things, but not us. we're suspended in a state of arrested development when it comes to Harry Potter, but I think we're okay with that.
Yeah, it's all right.
Here's a little known tidbit of information about MuggleNet's early days. MuggleNet wasn't called MuggleNet originally. And some of you do know this, but originally I thought there's no way I can possibly compete with all these huge Harry Potter mega sites.
Yeah.
So I thought, what the Harry Potter web community needs is, the problem is each website had its own thing that it did really well. But there was no one place that you could go to find out, each one website would have all of the chapter drawings, and one website would have this and the other website would have this. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to create a database and I'm going to review websites and I'm going to make this organized Harry Potter links database. There's no one good place to find them. So the original name for the website was The Best Harry Potter Links.
There you go. Look at that. And it turns.
And then I quickly realized that name wasn't exactly the grabber that I needed. So I changed it to the scintillating Potterites United.
Oh yes.
So who came up with MuggleNet? Is this going to be like an old lady in a park somewhere told you that you'd one day have a website called MuggleNet, or who came up with?
That was actually that was me. Warner Brothers was cracking down on Harry Potter websites at the time.
Right.
I remember Claire's Harry Potter website got shut down because it had Harry Potter in the domain, and I started getting worried and thinking, man, what if my name has Potter in it? What if this is a problem?
Yeah.
So I started brainstorming words that didn't have Potter in it, and I was thinking, okay, this is a website created by Muggles. It's like a network of Muggles. It's like a Muggle connection or a Muggle network or a MuggleNet.
Yeah.
MuggleNet.
It's interesting how the studios went from shutting sites down to embracing their presence.
Oh yeah. Cool, because
that was true. That was true of the early stages of the web. That was a microcosm of what was happening to the internet in general. The internet was this dark and scary, wild, wild west to most corporations, and they just saw this as being a place for people to rip off their content. But now they realize value can add.
It's quite the opposite.
Well, and also the press started picking it up, and I remember they highlighted that one girl. She was on the news because. And she looked so innocent. Warner Brothers came after me. I was just doing a Harry Potter website, and that really
was Claire.
Documentary.
Oh, that was Claire. Okay.
Yeah, that was Claire. And the funny thing was that her website sucked.
maybe they were taking her down because it sucked.
Yeah.
Listen,
we're doing you a favor here.
Yeah. We'd love to have websites for our franchise, but not something that's as crappy as yours.
Claire is out there right now.
She's
so angry.
So it's MuggleNet.com, too, is something that I find people find interesting when I first tell them that it's not Muggle.net.
Yeah, some people screw that up. It's annoying.
Well, my mom still calls the site MuggleNet after all these years. So
it is a really cool name, though. Like it's just a cool name, I think. MuggleNet.
Yeah.
Good job with that one, Emerson.
Thank you.
Okay, so another question I really have. When did you realize that MuggleNet was getting huge? Was there suddenly, like, you woke up one morning and you were like, oh, wow, a lot of people are visiting and I'd never planned this? Like, was there some sort of moment that indicated that?
There was a series of moments, and they were all progressively getting larger. The first moment I can remember concretely was it was a very small victory, but at the time it was huge because I was, a 12-year-old and I didn't know what I was doing. I added MuggleNet to a list of top Harry Potter sites, and one of the top site lists, and immediately it rose up to about 38th on the list. Mm-hmm. And while that doesn't seem like very much now, at the time I felt this incredible sense of accomplishment that my website was better than at least some other websites.
Right. Now, what about wasn't the other thing like the BBC? Didn't they do?
Yeah. This was the credibility. This is what made my parents first take note that this wasn't just some fun little hobby. Was that the BBC came out with a list of the top Harry Potter websites, and MuggleNet was on that list, and it was actually the first website they listed. So that was when my parents sat up and they were like, wow, okay, Emerson's not completely wasting his time.
Wasn't it? Didn't they come out with a list of just like fan sites? Because I seem to remember seeing that list, and it was like the OneRing.net was on there, and then they compared MuggleNet and the OneRing.net, and that's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah.
It's good to be in the league with them.
And that was actually one of the biggest reasons why MuggleNet grew as fast as it did, was because there was two things that I did early on. I didn't realize exactly what I was getting into, but I noticed that people were always eager to contribute content to the website. There was always people, submitting things that they were writing or, otherwise, sending in pictures. And at the time, all the other websites were just, kids like me doing it whenever they had time. But I thought, hey, these people all really want to help out. So I would say, wow, okay, this person's sending in so many of these, these great editorials, I'll just hire write as many as you want. Exactly, hire them, work together. Many hands that make light work.
Right.
So MuggleNet was one of the first websites that actually had a staff. Mm-hmm. And that made the website grow exponentially. The other big thing was that at the time, again, all the big Harry Potter websites seemed like they could never be caught. But I noticed that they didn't really get updated all that often. And there was no one website that had sort of everything that you need if you're a Harry Potter fan. They were all limited. And I noticed that there was other fandoms, other web communities that had been around for much longer. And even as big as, HarryPotterFans.net seemed, I noticed like sites like TheOneRing.net seemed much more professional and seemed just like much better websites altogether. So I would go around to, Dragon Ball Z websites or Pokemon websites or Lord of the Rings websites, and I would just kind of borrow their best ideas, and I would use them on MuggleNet. And sure enough, little things like having, a poll, something that seemed really obvious, or having, quotes, or having, comments on news posts, things like that were a lot of times plucked from other communities.
Thank you, Dragon Ball Z.
Now,
Yes.
is that why you started the caption contest?
No,
Yes,
Eric,
it
that
was
was to give you something to do, so you shut up for once.
Well, actually, I mentioned it because it's exactly like 7 years ago this week that the caption contest first started, and I took over 3 weeks or so in after I'd met Emerson, but Emerson started that on his own. That was not, anybody else. So
You
I
said
didn't know.
2 weeks from now will be the first. You said 2 weeks from now it'll have been 7 years, or 2 weeks ago.
No. It's exactly 7 years this week. That Emerson started the caption contest on MuggleNet.
Well, I'm thinking next month should be the caption contest 7th anniversary celebration.
Yeah, we'll do a top 15.
We'll get Dylan
moments
on a
of
layout. Yeah. It'll be good.
No. But seriously, I asked Emerson because I never really knew the story behind why he started it. And why he chose this first picture of Gilderoy Lockhart at the Dueling Club as the caption images.
All right. Well, to wrap this little talk up, Emerson, if you had to pick one favorite moment from your time on MuggleNet, just one, what would it be?
I think I would have to go back in time to a particular morning in May
2004
this
when
happened
you hired me.
perhaps at 8 a.m. For the one
Hello,
or
Emerson.
two people out
This is
there,
Joe.
for the one or two people out there who didn't hear this out, my dad had come bursting into my room, and he had this very panicked look on his face, and he was holding the phone in his hand, and he just kind of barked at me, "Emerson, it's Joe." And my first thought was, why is some guy named Joe calling at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
What the hell?
So he hands me the phone, and I hear this, of course, very clipped British accent on the other end of the line. "Hello, Emerson. This is Jim."
You're like,
And
what's
the
up,
rest is
dude?
Like, "Oh, what's up? What's up, man?"
Yeah, and the rest is history.
Yeah, because I spent the next 2 months crapping my pants,
Right.
and
Literally.
not being able to sleep, and maybe somewhat literally.
I remember like you got online after that happened, and you're like, big news, man, like huge news, and I was like, what's going on? Can't tell you. Seriously, can't tell you. And I was like, what? And then at the time there was this one of our mutual friends who Emerson happened to take to the Prisoner of Azkaban premiere, Mike McCauley.
Yeah.
Emerson told him about it, and then this kid's sitting there rubbing it in my face, and I'm just like, tell me, you shouldn't have told me you had anything to tell me.
Right.
I just remember throughout the entire interview with Joe, I spent half the time doing, paying attention to what she was saying and trying to formulate good counter questions. I spent the other half of the interview just thinking to myself, holy crap.
Right. Well, we do have to start wrapping up the show. We'll get into some announcements, but thanks, Emerson, for that insight into the site.
Oh, but for the record, since it's like the 10th anniversary, Andrew, who hired you at MuggleNet? I'm just curious.
That was you, Ben.
Oh, it was me. Okay, just making sure. Just making sure.
It was you, Ben.
I joined the staff in November 2003. That's when the site really started to take off.
Of course.
Yeah. I'd been there for a year, failed to do anything interesting, so Ben took over.
Man, I took that trivia page and I just took it to the top.
When Ben got his job, he spent several months begging me for a job on MSN, and I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was some kid, and finally he proved himself by being annoying enough, and so I thought, okay, I'll test him. I'll give him the most boring work, most dull and dry job I can possibly think of.
The trivia
managing
page.
The trivia page.
So, and the key to anything is everything is remember, you're interviewing for a job and you really want it, lie. So like whenever
what do you say?
Well, Emerson's like, "Well, do you know FTP?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course, FTP." Like,
no problem.
Yeah, totally. Do you know HTML? And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like at the time, I knew how to do like just like a little bit,
right?
But
that's funny.
I can't believe that was. I think that was 6 years ago. That's weird.
I will always remember.
And Shane's words of wisdom, ladies and gentlemen, lie on all of your job applications.
I was honest to you, Ben.
Well,
and I bugged you just like you did to Emerson. What, Eric?
I was honest to Emerson. He interviewed me for Fan of the Week as per the request of my friend, and we met on AIM, didn't we, Emerson? And
yeah, I remember Eric's friend. Eric seemed to me like perhaps the biggest Harry Potter fan that had ever been born, and I could not believe he existed. So I was like, hey, this guy.
I still can't believe he exists. I love you, Eric. You know I love you.
Hey, I love you too, Ben. No, my friend found MuggleNet and was like, hey, you got to check this out, but had already emailed Emerson and was like, hey, I have this friend, and
that's cool.
He should do the Fan of the Week. So it was my friend Justin was the reason I got involved with MuggleNet, but it was it was great. And the first time I logged on to MuggleNet's FTP was just really cool.
Yeah, I remember that too. I was like, got the power.
I remember when I was interviewing Andrew, I was busy and like I didn't know how serious he was about all this, and so I just kept stringing him along. I would tell him, be online tomorrow at 3 p.m. and I'll tell you then. And he'd get on at 3 p.m. and I wouldn't message him, and like I just like sit there and wait to see if he like would message me.
That time period where you had me waiting, I'm honest to God, I would not leave my computer because I was very paranoid that I would miss you. I would not be online when you wanted to tell me the good news, the impending good news.
Yeah,
you were quite the tease.
Finally, I was just like, all right,
time to let me off the hook. I was anyway.
And here we are.
So, yes.
SoCal, baby.
Well, it's wild to think that you started in Kansas, I started in New Jersey, and now we're both together in SoCal.
We're not together, Andrew.
You know what I mean. We're podcasting together in SoCal.
Just for the record, I don't want any crazy ships going on out there.
You mean I made my bed for nothing today? Okay. Well, we could talk about this forever, and maybe we will on another episode. We'll reminisce more. But for now, before we let everyone go today, we want to remind you about a couple of announcements. First, please do vote for us on Podcast Alley.
We've been reminding you for 4 years on this one.
And still just as important as ever.
Please.
So thank you for that. Also, HPEF's next con is coming up, Harry Potter Conference. Infinitus 2010. They actually just redid their website. It looks pretty cool. Infinitus2010.org. You can go over there and register for the conference.
And we're doing a MuggleCast there?
Well, we can't announce anything yet, but
okay.
Let's hope we do.
Let's hope so.
Yes. And just when you do register, there's a little referral box, and put MuggleCast in the box, or MuggleNet, so they know where you came from. We do greatly appreciate that as well. Also, we've recently redone our Deathly Hallows and Wizarding World sections on MuggleNet. You know, we do have great content on MuggleNet, so we encourage you to head over there. Check out the Movie 7 section, which I just said was recently revamped with a lot of new stuff, and the Wizarding World section was revamped. And, of course, all the other pages on the site are getting frequent updates all the time, so, hell, just check it all. Check it all out. Yeah, Wall of Shame. Emerson, you got to add some new stuff on there. Maybe some new crazies will email you after the show.
I think the problem is that I've become too jaded to Wall of Shame worthy emails, and now I've just read so many of them now that I feel like I've lost that self-confidence I need to be able to determine what is truly funny and what is truly obnoxious, because it's all obnoxious now.
And Eric, quickly, your announcement about the Roller Coaster Tycoon thing. Quickly,
Roller
please.
Coaster Tycoon, I've received 6 entries so far, but they've all kicked serious bum. Roller Coaster Tycoon, last day to send your Wizarding World of Harry Potter theme park save game files is Tuesday, October 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to post the winners or my favorites on the site on Halloween.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
Emerson, did you play Roller Coaster Tycoon at all?
I played all the Tycoons except that one, I think.
That's the best one, so you clearly have not played the Tycoon.
I was all about SimCity. Training for later on in life when I'm running my own.
Okay, and as always, you can
Mayor
visit
Sparks.
You can visit the MuggleCast website at MuggleCast.com for more information about the show, including our contact information. There you'll find a feedback form, or just email any one of us using our first name at staff.MuggleNet.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/BenShane.
Or twitter.com/MuggleCast.
I mean, either or.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, practically. Actually, yeah, this is something I would like to mention.
Go ahead.
On MuggleNet, we're actively supporting Breast Cancer Awareness Month. There's a product called the Beam It, which will allow you to increase your sensitivity of touch in order to conduct these breast self-exams. So if you do have a lump in your breast, it will be easier to detect, and you can detect it earlier, hopefully before it's too late. And remember, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer during her lifetime. So this is a very serious matter. And yeah, Maggie Smith, one of our own, is a breast cancer survivor. So go out, get your early detection methods down, conduct your self-exams. Don't play around with your life.
All right. Thank you, Ben. So that wraps it up. Thank you, Emerson, for joining us. It was a lot of fun having you here on the show. Happy 10 years, everyone.
10 years. Here's to another 10.
Oh, yes.
I feel like we need a theme song that we need to play for that.
Oh, that's MuggleNet at 10? We should make like a really dramatic video where it's like, it crying.
10 years. 10. Once again, I'm Andrew Sims.
I'm Ben Shane.
I'm Eric Skull.
I'm Mike Tannenbaum.
I am Emerson Sparks.
We'll see you next time for episode 184. Bye-bye.
Peace.